Welcome to another in a series of interviews with Libertarian candidates running for office in 2020. Up to now, we've been talking to Libertarian candidates running in Wake County, but today we're going to reach out to our neighboring county, Harnett, to talk to a candidate there. Zach Berly is the Libertarian candidate for North Carolina House of Representatives, District 53 in Harnett County. Zach is a 20-year-old recent graduate of Campbell University and a native of Harnett. He was born in Fayetteville and raised in Wilmington, where he attended middle and high school before earning a degree in broadcasting from Campbell. Zach is a sports play-by-play commentator, so he's kind of like in between jobs right now. And he served in leadership roles in the Republican Party youth organizations before being forced out by the Donald Trump's populist takeover, and welcomed into the Libertarian Party in 2017. And now he's one of our key candidates. Zach, appreciate you being with us today. Thanks for doing the interview. Let's launch into it with the first question that any candidate gets is, why are you running for office? What do you think makes you qualified to be a member of the North Carolina General Assembly?
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. I think this is a great opportunity for us to reach out to people and viewers, as well as to all of our candidates. So I ran for office. This is the first opportunity I've had to do so. And I really wanted to have the opportunity to hold my elected officials accountable. And now I'm not running against him anymore, but Representative David Lewis is known not just in my district, but across the state and the country, really, for his record on gerrymandering. And so with the ability to be on the same platform as him and to get to speak out and offer a libertarian opinion on some of the issues was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up, because I'd spoken to some people in the area and there was a wanting to have a libertarian voice, but nobody was there to step up and do it. So I decided I'd throw my hat in the ring. As far as what makes me qualified, of course, a 22-year-old recent graduate doesn't exactly fly high up on the list, but I think that it's very important that we have younger voices in the General Assembly, because it's one person among many across all of our counties. And I think that it's important. I'm not going to be playing an executive role. I'm going to be playing one single cog amongst a whole machine that makes the legislative process. So to have my voice that's going to be able to represent the libertarian view, as well as the larger Harnett County view, as well as an area that has a lot of young people, thanks to Campbell University, I think it's crucial as far as the ability to legislate effectively.
Very good. Now, on your website, which is a very nice website, by the way, you list a number of issues, but let's talk about what you consider to be your top three. The first is criminal justice reform. And that's, of course, a topic that's very popular nowadays, but it's an area where libertarians have kind of been out in front for decades, and now it looks like some of our ideas are finally being discussed. Let's tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure thing. And I have to be honest, when I first made my website, it's not an exhaustive list of all of the issues. It's just some of the ones I wanted to highlight. And criminal justice reform was not a part of that original list. It really kind of was a wake-up call when George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, all of that. I said, I have to put that at the top of the list to address this. So, it's, as you said, libertarians have been talking about this stuff for a while. And finally, we're getting some traction in the mainstream. So things that Justin Amash is doing at the national level, trying to get rid of mandatory minimum sentences, trying to end the practices of mass incarceration. A lot of this can be done at the federal level, but also the state has a role to play as well. And we can, as far as going into citizen review boards in all of our cities, that's something that the state can prioritize. Also stopping funding for police that will go to areas as far as giving them SWAT vehicles, SWAT equipment, the militarization of our police forces. Of course, I'm speaking to the choir here as far as libertarians go. It has to stop. So that's just a small list. There's plenty more on my website. And if you're in the discussion now, it involves a lot of those issues. But I think it's crucial. It's something we have to address now, because of the trend that we're heading on is disturbing.
Great. That's outstanding. Again, you're finally, people are finally starting to come around to libertarian positions. The next issue was the right to earn a living, and this deals with occupational licensing and regulation of just about every small business around. Tell me a little bit about that.
And that's an interesting one because my perspective on it at the beginning when I wrote it is different now, because in the beginning it was more of, well, it's just kind of a block in the way of small businesses, getting established. But now after this pandemic, it's going to play an even bigger role because so many small businesses have gone away, or maybe people, were going to get into a small business and didn't before, whatever it is. When we get out of this, whenever this is over and we're starting to reopen back up fully, people are going to want and are going to need to start new businesses to restart the economy. The best way to do that is to allow them to do it as easily as possible. That's going to mean lowering the amount or the ease in the process of getting these occupational licenses, because North Carolina is ranked as one of the hardest and one of the states that has the most occupational licensing laws. As far as the right to earn a living, which is what I mentioned specifically, those are programs that have already been taken up in other states across the union that we can take, modify for our situation and apply. But it actually lends itself very well, because looking at how we're going to get out of this, how we're going to restart the economy, we're going to need it to come from small businesses and from everyday Americans. And the best way to do that is to allow them to start their own businesses as easily as possible.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, the last issue of the top three is fair districting, and that's, I understand that's the whole idea of redistricting and gerrymandering has been a major project of the person that you're hoping to replace in General Assembly. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so obviously with David Lewis's record, it was going to always be something we had to talk about. But this is my top issue. This is the one thing that I don't think is Libertarian, Democratic, Republican. It's something that we can all agree on, and it's time to put aside the BS and just get down to the fact that we need fair elections. We don't need one side or the other to draw the lines, because guess what? The Republicans are drawing the lines, but they're using the laws and the rules that the Democrats set up. So one side has perfected the thing that the other one has set up. So we can't trust either of them to do it. We need this to be independent. We need for third-party voices to be involved to make sure that there is no racial bias, there is no partisan bias, because in the end, all that matters is that everyone can vote in a way that is the best for them or the best for our system. And what we have is certainly not it. We're not the worst state, but we're one of the worst states as far as gerrymandering goes. So to me, this isn't an issue that any of us should have to debate. It's just, we have a democracy, we vote, let's do that the best way possible, which is not the way we do it now. So it's not going to be me doing it. I would hope to bring in an independent commission that can examine it without any bias, because of course you could say that third parties would have the same deal, even though I respectfully think that we wouldn't. So it's going to be huge. We're coming up on a census year, and that means we're going to be redrawing the districts next year. So who do we want to be redrawing those lines? I don't think we want it to be Republicans, Democrats anymore.
Great. Yeah, that's something that you definitely can reach across profiles on. There's people in both of the old parties that are interested in changing that system. Let's hope it gets done. So those are your top three, and you list a few others, and you said even on your website it's not exhaustive. I know there's a lot of things to discuss, but let's just talk about one other issue that you think is important for this election cycle.
Yeah, sure thing. So I know one of the big issues that's has been encapsulating the national discussion for at least the last decade. I mean, for a long time, but especially in the last decade, is healthcare. And the Democrats have their solution, which has been the Affordable Care Act, and then some say Medicare for all. And then the Republicans have their solution, which is nothing really, just not that. So I think that there has to be some sort of free market solution that we as libertarians propose, because we can't just ignore it. I mean, the Republicans have shown that first of all is not popular, and second of all is just not good for the people around us. So the solution that I have is direct primary care, or is at least going to help. I think that this is something that even if, let's say, the Democrats were to take it to the national level or even the state level, they're very likely going to pass some sort of healthcare reform. So this is something that can play along with that, introducing a free market solution that comes in and replaces the need for insurance within some of these clinics. They can opt out of their insurance, and then you would basically pay almost like a subscription to your clinic, where you could then go in and receive care. And studies have shown that the prices can be greatly reduced over your normal care facilities, and hopefully it will catch on to the point where you won't have to, you can switch once to a new doctor, because of course a lot of the doctors that we have are going to be not subscribing to the system, unfortunately. But I want to see this grow, and I want to see legislation that will help bolster it, because if we are going to go to more of a public option, I would still like for there to be private options, because at some point we're going to reach a tipping point where either we do nothing or we have more of a government influence. And if we do, I still want there to be some rooted private option that is both effective and affordable.
Very good. Thank you for that. So at the end of your first term in office, 2 years in the General Assembly, serving probably as the only Libertarian in the General Assembly, what do you hope to have accomplished, if anything? Any law being repealed or enacted or reforms made?
Yeah, I mean, all of the things on my platform, obviously, I would love for any one of them to get done. But honestly, if I could sponsor a bill and have it co-sponsored by at least one member of both of the other parties and get it passed all the way through the governor, that would mean a lot to me. Obviously, I would love for it to be one of the issues that I brought forward. But of course, there are some ideals on either side that I would love to support as well. So I think that we've seen Justin Amash try that at the national level. And of course, Congress has gummed that up. But I think that would be a huge step forward for our party if we can get some real legislation passed, not just on our own, because that's, of course, going to be difficult. But if we can have a tripartisan co-sponsored bill that makes it all the way through, that would be groundbreaking for us. And I think regardless of what the topic is, would mean a lot for the state level, and then could be an example for the national level as well.
Good. It's amazing how much of the work of the General Assembly is done. A lot of bills, many bills have passed with both of the parties supporting it. Sometimes that's a very good thing, and unfortunately, a few times it's a pretty bad thing.
Yeah.
Things can get done. So you mentioned in the introduction that you're a young guy, which, from my perspective as an old guy, that's a very good thing to see young blood in the legislature. But how is there anything in particular in your life experience or your work experience, education that has influenced you that you could point out to as something that you're going to be bringing into the General Assembly, besides a new and refreshing look at things?
Yeah. So as was in the intro as well, I was involved politically when I was younger, before I became an adult, pretty much at the age of 18. I was involved with the youth organizations in the Republican Party. And during the time there, I got to spend organizing not only grassroots campaigns, or what we call them now, but reaching out to counties across North Carolina and setting up smaller groups that will then go on and do campaigns and that sort of thing, as well as working with the campaigns of elected officials. Now, of course, I wasn't doing any legislating, but I have been around the circles, and I've been within the state capitol and the legislature, know some of the people that are still there, certainly. And I think that ability to have been in the circles and to still, I think a few people still know my name. So I think that could be useful, and it's certainly not something that not a lot of 22-year-olds can offer. So, naturally, I think that not having a lot in common is a good thing, because that will shake things up. But I do think there is enough there that it'll be a way for me to get in the door. And of course, I'm college educated, so that counts for something, right? And, not that it's necessary, but I do think that will, my ability to at least have an inroad with some of the people there would be useful.
Very good. Yes, and I'm sure that many of the people that you met in the General Assembly are probably still there. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, as the potentially the only Libertarian in the General Assembly, if you're elected, how do you think you're going to be able to get along with the Democrats and Republicans, reaching across both aisles?
Yeah, I mean, the problem with it is so often with legislation, it's only ever done if it's beneficial. Most of the time, it's not common sense legislation. When you hear the words common sense legislation, most of the time it's really just beneficial politically for one party or another. I think if they can have someone in there just as a straight talker, that could help. The problem we see at the national level is that most of the legislating is done by the leadership. that the either side, whether it's the majority or minority leaders, will get together with the whip, and they will pretty much decide what the legislation is going to be, and then they'll tell the caucus to go out and vote yes or no with little to no debate, as we hear about horror stories all the time. So with that same sort of idea at the state level, we want to make sure that everything is transparent. And I think whenever people in the legislature see that I'm not there for any political benefits, I would be assuming I'm the only one. If things were close, then perhaps that I'm the pivotal vote, and that would obviously be nice. But regardless, it's mostly going to be about just doing things that make sense and doing them open and transparently. And I think if people see that and see that my intentions are positive, which is all it is, I'm not looking to, run for president one day or something. I'm not using this as a step ladder or sending money back to my home district, that I'm just there to do what's best, not only for the people in my district, but across our whole state. I think that sort of sincerity will be well received, or at least I hope it will. And I have faith, not a whole lot of faith, but I do have faith in the people that are there. Maybe not necessarily the party structures, but I do believe that there are good people there and that they are willing to step together and to do something. So fingers crossed that the human aspect of it outweighs the political aspect of it.
Thank you for that. So I'll leave you with the last word. Is there anything that we have that I haven't asked you that you'd like to answer? Any last words you'd like to say?
Yeah, sure thing. So, I think it's important to always remember that whatever race that we're in as a party, of course, is always going to be an uphill climb, because we are not one of the major two parties. I didn't do this to win. I didn't do this to get fame or anything like that. I did this because I wanted to hold my elected officials accountable. And I think that's important, that whatever way that people get involved is one that they feel comfortable with, of course, but running for office is something that's possible. If you're out there and you have someone that's never been challenged, and even if you're a Republican or a Democrat, maybe you have someone who's served in office for 30 years and no one even bothers them in the primaries anymore, I would encourage you to go out and to at least challenge them, get together in the primary, or run as a third party in the general. Or maybe one of the two parties doesn't have anyone running on their ticket. Whatever it is, there are ways for you to get involved at any level, whether it's just running for office, whether it's just getting involved in a campaign, or just getting out and telling people to vote. Whatever it is, it's so important that we all be involved. It doesn't matter who you vote for, what side of the policies you're on, just as long as we're all active, because that's the only way our system works. So it's been really nice to see young people come around to my campaign, especially around Campbell, so many college students who don't have a lot of reasons to be excited about politics, especially right now. So to be able to serve as that conduit and to really see some interest, even if maybe they don't agree with me on everything, to know that me personally would be able to do something for them or for people that don't normally get that voice as far as being younger. It means a lot to me, and it can be a way for anyone to get involved and to do more than just the normal. So I encourage anyone, especially, to be active, but if you can do more, definitely do more, because it's worth it. And it's not that difficult. You just got to pay the money to get in, and campaign finance can be a bit of a pain. You can do it.
Thank you. And it's really great. I'll tell you, it's great from a personal standpoint to see young people involved in politics to begin with. Thank you again, Zach. We've been speaking with Zach Berly, who's the Libertarian candidate for North Carolina House in District 53 in Harnett County. If you want to find out more about Zach and his position on the issues, you can go to Berly, B-E-R-L-Y 2020.vote, Berly2020.vote. Thank you and have a nice day.